right. Good morning. We're going to call the meeting to order at this time. Welcome to the December meeting of the Knoxville Historic Zoning Commission. This meeting is broadcast on several TV stations, so please remember to speak clearly and directly into the microphones. We'll call the roll in just a... I'm sorry, Dallas, didn't mean to catch you like that.
Commissioner Blackburn?
Here.
Commissioner Eason?
Here.
Commissioner Bradley?
Here.
Commissioner Kessler is excused. Commissioner Hearns?
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Here.
Commissioner Randazzo?
Here.
Commissioner Tillman?
Here.
Commissioner Webster?
Here.
That's 8 present, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have a swearing in of the speakers. If you wish to speak on an item, please stand now and answer with "I do" to the following affirmation. I solemnly affirm that the testimony I'm about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. We ask that all speakers please limit their presentation to 5 minutes or less. We also ask that speakers please give their name and address before speaking. Please sign in at the desk by legibly printing your name and address. Appeals of any Historic Zoning Commission decisions may be made to Chancery Court within 60 days of the date of this meeting. This time we'll have approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
I move that we approve minutes.
All right, we have a motion. Second, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll go into staff reports. Lindsay?
Okay, the level 1 COAs issued since the last meeting at 425 East Scott Avenue. There was a new roofing project, including roof tiles, new flashing, and new siding on small sections of the dormer walls. At 237 East Oklahoma Avenue, there was a new roofing project, including repair and replacement of fascia and new gutters. And then at 1209 Harvey Street, another new roofing project with a new asphalt, an architectural shingle roof.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. We'll go into our certificates of appropriateness now. Our first case is at Fairmont Emeryland. It is at 1916 Emeryland Boulevard. It is case 10E24-HZ.
Okay, so this is a project with several new additions. There have not been any revisions since the last meeting or the previous submittal, so I'm happy to run through the scope of work, but I will also kind of describe those as we go through the staff findings. This includes an addition to the front, a 3-car attached garage addition to the rear, and another interior space addition to the rear as well. Some photos of the existing conditions. So in summary, the application was postponed at the October 2024 meeting to allow the applicant to revise the drawings in response to the guidelines, staff recommendation, neighborhood input, and the commission's discussion. Discussion related to the placement of the front addition, the massing of the 3-car garage, continued discussion at the November meeting related to the front addition not meeting the guidelines and the attached 3-car garage not being compatible with the neighborhood's historic context. The applicant is unwilling to modify any element of the request. Just to summarize, related to the front addition, it is set back from the facade by only 1 foot, 5.5 inches. It almost doubles the existing facade width. The guidelines are clear to say that if additions are made to the existing building, they should be located at least 5 feet behind the front facade of the existing building. The front addition is not sufficiently differentiated from the facade of the house and should be revised in placement to meet the guidelines. In terms of the garage, the Historic Zoning Commission has extensively discussed the overall massing of the proposed 3-car garage. There is not a historic precedence for the 3-car garage in the neighborhood. The commission has allowed the applicant 2 postponements to submit that revised proposal, but they have not opted to make changes. So staff is recommending approval of the proposed rear addition, approval of the front east addition, subject to the placement being revised to meet the design guidelines, at least 5 feet behind the front facade, and denial of the attached 3-car garage.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present?
I don't believe they were coming.
All right. If not, then is the neighborhood here? Do we have a neighborhood rep?
I did not receive additional comments from them.
Okay, then we'll just open the floor to questions and comments from the board.
Given that the applicant is unwilling to make changes, I'm not sure a partial approval of a portion of addition is useful, but I'd be interested to hear if any board members have any thoughts on that.
Are you referring to recommendation number 2?
Recommendation number 1.
Okay.
Staff recommendation approval of proposed rear addition, but I'm not sure what's the point of approving one portion of the project when the rest is not within the guidelines. And if they're unwilling to make modifications, a partial approval may not be useful, the project may not happen.
I mean, I think that they could still do the portion of the rear addition without doing the 3-car garage. Because that's just their choice. So, I mean, if there's a piece of it that we could approve and it meets the guidelines, then I don't think there's a reason for us to disapprove it or deny it. But they clearly, the part they're unwavering on is the 3-car garage. And that's the one that we've had exhaustive discussion on. So, I mean, I think the way staff recommendation has set it up is appropriate, in my opinion.
I would agree.
I would agree with that too. I think the 3-car garage is totally inappropriate. I have a feeling that they probably won't move forward with the project if it's not approved, but I think the staff's recommendation is correct in that it approves the portion that does meet the guidelines.
I find it a little bit concerning that no one's here when they have such a strong opinion about this to discuss it with us, or even a representative for them.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we approve based on staff recommendation.
A second.
All right. We have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All right. If not, we'll vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next case, which is also Fairmont Emery Land. It's at 1932 Emery Land Boulevard. It's case 11C24HZ.
Okay, so this was another postponement to allow the applicant to provide more clear drawings. So this is just the construction of an attached 22 feet deep by 12 feet wide carport in the rear yard. The carport has a front gable roof, clad in asphalt shingles, a concrete parking pad, and square wood posts. The carport features an enclosed storage closet towards the rear. It will be clad in vinyl siding, which reflects the existing house. And then on the rear elevation, which is in your package, has a wooden door. So this application was postponed to allow them to clarify on their site plan. So the carport will be located behind the primary structure, accessed via an extension of the existing driveway. There will be no new curb cuts created. It will be minimally visible from the right-of-way, so placement is appropriate. The materials will reflect the materials on the primary house, including vinyl siding and asphalt shingle-clad roof slope, and the renderings provided show somewhat narrow wood posts. So staff would recommend that the wood posts are revised to be slightly larger in size to be compatible with the context. This was somewhat related to the previous renderings that had them as slightly smaller. But the elevation drawings and the renderings don't quite line up in this instance. The site plan has been submitted to permitting. That's the one on the left. The site plan was approved by the city zoning and engineering staff. We would just confirm that that site plan should meet city engineering standards. And then just noting that revisions to the carport, including placement to a location that's more visible from the right-of-way, would require further review and approval by the HCC. So staff is recommending approval of 11C24HC subject to the conditions that the carport supports are compatible with the primary house in the neighborhood context, and then the site plan meets city engineering and zoning standards with any revisions to placement, making it more visible to require further review by the commission.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present? Do we have a neighborhood rep?
No additional comments.
All right. We'll open the floor to the board for questions or comments.
Lindsay, would staff approve condition number 1, revisions to carport supports to be compatible with the primary house and neighborhood context?
That's
And-
correct, yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Then I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion. It's been properly seconded. Any further discussion? If If not, we'll have the vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Fort Sanders, 310 13th Street. It is case 12E24HZ.
Okay, so this project, here's some photos of the existing conditions, and we can go back to these. This project involves the facade reconstruction. So the applicants will be removing this ground level brick veneer, a walk-up window, and non-historic storefront doors, and then installing new paired aluminum storefront doors with a series of 3 bays of flat cementitious panel bulkheads below, and then more storefront windows above, and then a series of aluminum clad transom windows that'll extend the whole length of the facade. There's also a proposed installation of a new flat aluminum awning with integrated recessed lighting that you can see there in the rendering. The project also includes a new addition of a second-story porch, which has a metal structure, a metal railing, and a flat painted a wood pergola there. So this addition is going to be located above the existing first-story flat roof cooler massing. You can see those in the existing conditions. That's an existing sort of cooler space for this store here. And then there are some exterior rehabilitation scopes involved here. Those include the removal of some existing plywood siding on the sides, the removal of the non-historic vinyl windows, and the fabric awning on the facade, and then the new installation of painted clapboard siding on elevations of this cooler. They will also remove the new vinyl windows and install 2/2 aluminum clad wood windows, which draw from the one original window that's visible there. Repair and patching to the terracotta cap, masonry repair, and a new roofing membrane. So 310 13th Street is a commercial building. The design guidelines for Fort Sanders focus primarily on residential construction. Overall, the scope of work here exceeds the design guidelines for Fort Sanders by removing non-historic materials and installing materials and design elements that are more appropriate for the structure. The new windows reflect the original windows, and all the repair scopes are appropriate. The masonry is already painted, probably several coats of different paint here, and so additional paint won't detract from that historic brick. The proposed storefront reconstruction will remove non-historic elements and install a historically appropriate storefront system, increasing the overall transparency on the building. While this cooler addition, non-historic addition, doesn't feature any windows at the street level, it does serve to enclose a cooler. These existing windows were already blocked in. The clapboard siding will be an improvement on the T111 siding and the vinyl windows that are blocked from the interior. And the building's facade will have a significant amount more transparency due to this new storefront system. The porch above the side addition is appropriate and could be removed without any effect on historic materials. So staff is recommending approval of 12E24HC as submitted.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Zane Espinosa from Sanders Pace Architecture. Do I give our address there?
If you don't mind.
Yeah,
You might wanna
514
visit.
West Jackson Avenue, Suite 102, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37902.
Thanks, Zane. Do you have anything you want to add to what Lindsay's presented?
No, not really. That was a great description. And we've reviewed and agree with all of the staff findings. So I'm just here to answer some questions.
Good, thank you. We heard from Randall.
I don't have any additional neighborhood comments on this one.
Okay. All right, board, any questions or comments for the applicant?
I think it's lovely and a vast improvement to what was there.
100%.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve based on staff findings.
Seconded.
Great. We have a motion. It's been properly seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Zane. It's an excellent project. Very
Thank you.
nice looking. Thank you.
That's awesome.
All right. Old North Knox. This is at 0 Leonard Place, and it's case 12D24HZ.
Okay. Okay, so this is a new primary structure fronting Leonard Place. The project is a 3-unit townhouse that measures 63.7 feet wide overall by 36 feet deep. The main massing is proposed to be set 20 feet from the front property line. Parking is a concrete pad located to the rear of the house and accessed from the alley. The townhouse features 3 front gable roof massings for each unit. It's connected by a central cross gable roof. The primary roof line features eave overhangs and exposed rafter tails. The gable fields will be clad in fiber cement siding, shake siding, and each unit features a porch of unspecified depth that has a shed roof clad in metal roofing, exposed rafter tails, and 4 10-inch square posts. The building will be clad in fiber cement siding with corner boards separating the units and rest on a 2.5-foot tall block foundation that will be clad in stucco. The windows are 1/1 single hung. There are projecting sills and trim that you can see in a detail here. And the facade has 3 windows per unit on the second floor, and then 2 and a door on the first story. So I'll run through some of the staff's findings here. So this lot to receive new construction is within the Old North overlay, not the National Register District. There has not been a primary structure on the lot visible on any of the historic aerials since at least 1935. The property is adjacent. It's at the end of the block here, and I can pull up aerials as well. So the block ends here, and that's some commercial zoning. That's North Broadway. So the applicant is using Article 4.6 of the zoning code, which are the middle housing standards. These were adopted in March 2020, or 2024. These are adopted in March 2024. And the intent is to promote the development of neighborhood scale housing forms that have additional units. So it may allow more flexible development of land than is possible under the base district zoning regulations, but they are subject to additional dimensional design and parking standards. So this is a review that occurs through staff. The townhouses don't require a special use from the Planning Commission, and I'm happy to answer questions about those standards. The Historic Zoning Commission review will focus on how the project meets the design guidelines, as the townhouses are a use that's permitted by right based on these zoning standards. Some elements of middle housing review may trigger site plan and building elevation revisions, which then would require additional review by the HCC. So we make that caveat. The townhouses are proposed to be set 20 feet from the front property line. The average front setback of the block is 18 feet. The adjacent new houses are at 19 and 22 feet. And so the houses will be consistent with the placement of the houses on the block. The porches will be at 10.5 feet, which will be compatible with the adjacent front porch setbacks. So this will align with the front setback pattern of the block. The building has even side yard setbacks. Locating the parking at the rear of the property and access from the alley will preserve the existing streetscape. There won't be any new curb cuts or front yard parking. The final site plan would be required to meet city engineering and then the middle housing standards. The applicant has chosen an interpretation of the craftsman style similar to the 2 adjacent new construction houses and historic houses on the block. The style is appropriate for the context. It incorporates exposed rafter tails, triangular brackets, and then siding variations in the gable fields. So this is a 2-story townhouses. They are proposed for a block characterized largely by 1 to 1.5-story houses. In the middle housing standards, townhouses are permitted to be 2 stories. A 2-story building is slightly taller than the context, especially on this block. There are at least two 2-story buildings on the 200 block of Leonard Place. The 2-story height is typically necessitated by a townhouse form. The design guidelines recommend breaking up uninteresting box-like forms into smaller, varied massings by use of bays, porches, and roof shapes. This design uses projecting front gable roof lines, extended porches, corner boards to break those up. The guidelines also recommend a mix of wall areas with window and door elements in the facade, like those on existing buildings. This design does incorporate a sufficient amount of transparency on each elevation. There's a consistent rhythm of windows on the facade in particular. The roof pitch appears to be approximately 6/12. There's an intersecting cross gable here. The guidelines often recommend a 12/12 pitch. However, craftsman houses often have roofs less steep than a 12/12. A 12/12 pitch would also increase the visual scale of the 2-story buildings. The drawings indicate a 30-inch tall stucco clad foundation. That height is sufficient for the context, but could be reduced slightly to reduce the overall scale. In terms of materials, the guidelines recommend that new materials be consistent with those on the street. Fiber cement lap siding has been approved for new construction or additions in the Old North overlay. The lap siding should be smooth finished and 4 to 5 inches in exposure to be compatible with the context. The shake siding does break up that overall pattern. And exterior chimneys were not historically clad in siding, so the chimney should be clad in brick veneer to be compatible with the context. In terms of the porches, the projecting front porches are compatible with historic porches in the neighborhood in terms of depth and projection. The applicant should clarify the specific porch depth and also the material specs for the porch columns and the porch flooring. Overall, the elevations have a sufficient amount of transparency in terms of the windows. There are not information on window materials in the application, but the drawings do include trim and sills that are compatible with historic windows. And the drawings indicate a sort of craftsman style door, but we don't have specs for those as well. So staff's recommending approval of 12D 24HC subject to the conditions that the site plan and elevations meet relevant standards of the zoning code, including the middle housing standards and city engineering standards. The fiber cement siding be smooth finished and 4 to 5 inches in exposure. The chimney be clad in brick veneer, and the applicant provide final window and door specs for staff for approval.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Quinn Epperly at 9812 Westland Drive.
Thank you. Anything to add to Lindsay's presentation?
No, everything that she found we would agree with, and in terms of the things mentioned and needed, it would be aluminum clad windows. The porch posts would be wood wrapped posts. That would be the 10 by 10 size to meet approval, and we are fine with any recommendations of height differences for the foundation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I see the neighborhood rep here. Mr. Bullen, would you like to address the board?
Sean Bolin, 115 East Scott Avenue, representing Old North Knoxville. So before I say anything, I want to be abundantly clear that the neighborhood supports both middle housing, multi-generational housing, and duplexes and triplexes. So I don't want anyone to be confused on that. In fact, there's historic precedent for that in Old North Knoxville, and specifically this portion of Old North Knoxville. There are 3 historic duplexes just 1 block away. So to be clear about that, the neighborhood does have concerns in regards to the application as submitted. There are too many unknowns in here for us to feel comfortable. One, we obviously need to address the issue with the chimney and potentially the stucco foundation. But 2, we do not know the specs for the door. We do not know the size, depths, and flooring for the front porch. We do not know the size or the materials for the windows. And because of all these unknowns, and because of previous confusions that have occurred, on this block that caused stop work orders, we would like those clarifications to be filled strictly. So there's no issue with the building or the timeline proposed. So that's the issue with the application as submitted. In the unknowns in the application, when it comes to the design, again, we do not oppose a triplex or duplex at all, but the design seems incompatible with both our guidelines and Secretary of Interior standards. To Lindsay's point, we have 15 houses on the 100 block of Leonard Place. Of those, only 2 are 2-story. That means 87% of the houses on that block are 1 or 1.5 stories. This is when the Secretary of Interior Standards focuses on scale and our guidelines focus on scale, the proposed infill housing should be compatible. To be compatible with only 13% of the block, we find is unacceptable. When it comes to the width, additionally, all the houses on the 100 block of Leonard Place are around 40 feet wide. This house or this structure is 65 feet wide, so it's 40% wider than any other structure. The neighborhood would feel that if there was a house that looked more similar to traditional townhouses in the neighborhood, or in adjacent neighborhoods like Fourth and Gill. They have historic townhouses there. That would be acceptable. If they could make a duplex, that would be acceptable, but this massing is simply inappropriate and incompatible with the block that it's in, and that's just fact. Also, when it comes to the design discusses box-like structures, and it's hard to get more box-like than this. This is not Craftsman. This is more reminiscent of a Foursquare interpretation. Foursquare is perfectly appropriate, but again, the scaling, the mass, and the design all fall outside of our guidelines. Any questions?
Not right now, but we'll probably come back to you.
I'll be sure to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay, can we get can we get a street view to get some context of what the other houses look like? In the meantime, I see that there are people here from the neighborhood. We want to allow you an opportunity to speak, so if you'll say your name and address.
Good morning. I'm James Pierce. I live at 122 Leonard Place, 3 doors down and across from this address. I'm here representing myself as well as at least 7 other families that live on both Leonard Place and Granger, some of whom could come here today. I would like for them to be recognized that they are here. We had a chance to meet once we saw the sign posted on the lot, and we discussed the application, and we have all unanimously agreed on the statement that I'd like to read for you. The triplex in this application has not existed historically or presently in our historic district. Neither does this disproportionate scale that it causes. While there are many different styles and sizes of homes within our borders, there is continuity along with a diversity of architectural styles. Scale is a term you will read repeatedly in both the Old North Knoxville and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. O&K design guides specifically under new construction, H1, relate the size and proportions of new structures to the scale of adjacent buildings. H4, new buildings must reinforce the scale of the neighborhood by their height, width, and massing. I1, avoid new construction that varies in height so that new buildings are equal to the average height of existing buildings. From the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, number 1, a property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal changes to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. Number 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural features from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. Number 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historical materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the district integrity and the property and its environment. These guidelines do not support the building of this triplex within our historic district. The disproportionate scale will destroy the cohesiveness of the streetscape on Leonard Place. Please help us maintain the historic integrity of our neighborhood by denying this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Is there anyone else from the neighborhood that would like to speak? All right, we'll take your comments. All right, we'll open the floor to the board for questions, comments for the applicant or the neighborhood rep.
I'll speak first. I live in the neighborhood. I live on Granger Avenue. I'll start with the things that I like about the project. I think the density could work. I think the setbacks align with the guidelines. I think the chimney scale and placement could really work. And here's where I'm going to start getting into the things I don't like as much. I think the siding material for the chimneys, I think, is questionable. I think the material choice for the foundations isn't appropriate. the windows not having any grids. I think most I agree almost completely with what Sean, our neighborhood rep, said. Even as much that it's not really a craftsman style, including the columns specifically. I would think for a craftsman style, you would have a pedestal column or something similar. This is definitely a mix of styles and definitely leans more towards box-like than it is craftsman or in a historic Victorian vernacular or anything like that. Something I've wrestled with a bit when I'm going through the guidelines in preparation for this meeting, and in no place in our guidelines does it say that a design has to have a soul. But I think this is something where this is clearly lacking. People look at this design and see like there needs to be more here. It does say that they should be contemporary in spirit, that design should be contemporary in spirit, and they need to recognize the patterns and nature of the street. Maybe that's where the guidelines and what I'm looking for converge. But I think this doesn't look like townhomes. These look like 3 boxes stuck together. The intersecting cross gables really don't look like a well thought out design for this context. And again, I think the density is possible here, but I think it needs to be significantly more thoughtful. This town is flush with talented architects who I think could bring forth a lasting design that works here. I don't see a title block of who you're working with on this. I'm not sure, but I just don't think this is it.
I'll just tag team Commissioner Tillman's comments about the building it having a soul and use the previous project that we just saw where they took a building and they actually did more than they were required to do and made the building look so much better. And so many times we get applicants that just want to hit the minimum and just meet the guidelines and stay inside the box. But to his point, look at the previous building and the pictures before and what's proposed now. And I think that shows you a good example of putting a soul into a building, which is exactly what this needs.
I have a question. What height is the porch at from grade?
The porch, I believe it's the porch, I believe, is 2.5, like the foundation.
In that case, you are going to be required by IRC to have guardrails, and because you have 4 risers, you're going to need handrails.
Okay.
Which could be an opportunity also to help flesh out this design, but it's going to have to be something that you consider carefully after you make some other design decisions. But I mean, yeah, those are very small things, but
Sure.
they can really flesh out the facade.
Okay.
That's not to say that I think guardrails will save this, but just that you're going to need them and perhaps even, I don't know, the beginnings of a conversation of postponement, revision, things like that, because there are things missing.
Right. And just for future reference, because I know you come before us several times, Mr. Epley, this is a good opportunity for a workshop where we can workshop this with the board after the meeting and give some direction and stuff. So just keep that in mind for future reference.
Okay.
As well as I advise to work with the neighborhood when it gets to this point and we're alternating on the mic, gets more combative. You know, it's even just how we vote, it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, or postponement. But a more collaborative approach with the neighborhood, I think, could be beneficial because I think something here is needed on this vacant lot, but I just don't think this design is going to work.
And so when you mean design, are you specifically referring to just design standards or in terms of a townhouse project in general?
Well, we're tied to the design standards, so we have to stay within that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But also, like, I think Sean mentioned this, stop me if I misquoted you, these don't look like townhouses. They look like 3 houses that have shared walls.
I said the exact same thing yesterday, so. I wanted to make a comment on the roof because I think starting there and kind of noticing how it's different from other houses in the neighborhood could be helpful. If these were 3 single houses, it's unlikely that you would have just that flat roof. The design guidelines say roof forms are complex. Hip roofs with lower gables, multiple or telescoping gables, and it goes on lots of different ways to vary the roof line so it's not just 2 angles coming together. I do see that you put a lot of thought into this design and trying to make it look historic, you know, adding the chimneys. I don't think I've seen that on a new construction project. So I commend you for that. And then definitely all of the transparency. That's really nice to see on new construction as well. You were talking about like the different craftsman styles and whatnot. When we do new construction, you have a lot more leeway and it doesn't necessarily have to look historic. You can use materials that are historic and like the rest of the neighborhood, but it doesn't have to try to look like a craftsman home if you don't want it to be. So that's, again, a great place to discuss in a workshop.
Okay. I actually did have them redrawn yesterday with a hip styled roof in anticipation of possibly that being something that could help. And so I wanted to propose to see if we think that might help the roof line, in your all's opinion.
Yeah, front-facing hip in place of the shake gable that we see. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that would really help. I think the shake material change is also, it's nice. I think the roof form is going to come from your walls. I think a great place to start would be a projecting front massing, whether that's a gable, whether that's more of a rotunda style that we see in townhouses more. I think that is going to change what the roof looks like and add visual interest to the project, just as a suggestion. That's okay. Again, that's more appropriate for a workshop, but
I think you might have a little bit of latitude also based on the position that this lot is on the street. You're on the edge.
Correct.
If it were in the middle of the street, then, you know, absolutely you wouldn't want to tower over everyone else. But by being where you are, you might have some opportunity there.
Okay. And one thing I would like to point out in terms of the size and scale, everyone has kind of mentioned the height of it. It is actually the same exact height as 123 Leonard, the other house that we built first.
Yeah.
So from a size and scale standpoint, while it is wider with 3 units being built, the height is not different.
And I think that this is to Commissioner Tillman's point. I think this is where working with an architect would be a benefit because they could put a elevation together of the street, and we see that often.
Okay.
And it shows just in elevation the different heights, and that will move your case a long way when we can see that it's actually the same height or if it's too high.
Okay.
Were you saying that a new construction, the same height as another new construction home on the same street?
Yes, just 2 down.
So I think the concern that they're trying to get is that portion of the district and that street as a whole, not just one single building and it being in the exact same. I mean, I think if I recall, there was quite a bit of discussion about the height of that at the time and trying to minimize that height, even in appearance, so that it would feel like a coherent part of the neighborhood. And I think that's what we're trying to get at.
And
In terms of the height of that, of 123, the concern of that one?
No, for this one, when we talk
Okay.
about massing, we're not
Sure.
just talking, is the height exactly the same as the new house next door? We're talking, is it appropriate within the context of the neighborhood? Because the height is one part, but it
Yeah.
also has width and depth as well.
Sure,
And
yeah.
overall, the massing is very large compared to what's existing on the street.
Okay. Yeah, I was just speaking to the height of it, just because that had been mentioned several times, and so I just wanted to speak to that of that it's not taller than most of the houses on the block.
Well, and that becomes, I mean, we're still talking to some extent about scale, different scales of scale, so to
Sure.
speak. But if we took every infill and we made them all that height, which was allowable in a past instance, the entire feeling of the neighborhood would change. It would feel very different. And especially when we're dealing with a triplex, and I commend you for working with the middle housing and, grappling with that. But unfortunately too, instead of one slim version of it, you are becoming monolithic when you start building at that scale. There is, I don't even know how many units there are, but there are townhomes. I can't remember if it's in Fourth and Gill or Old North at this point, but they're by Ally Architecture, and they're a pretty lovely example of how they inserted that into a very historic neighborhood and actually went quite modern, but
On the edge.
and it's on the edge, and
Of Fourth and Gill?
Mhm.
Okay,
And
I
it's-
think I know this.
it fits really well with its surroundings. It isn't jarring. It doesn't ruin the neighborhood or, upset the rhythm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of examples to look at because I'm pulling up examples now, especially the one she just mentioned. I think it's a great idea to have the housing, especially for the middle housing, because it's so necessary.
Thank you.
I also sell real estate, and we need more housing. So just taking in all the comments that's been brought before you and possibly regrouping, including what the neighborhood rep said, because he pointed out some more detailed things like windows and doors, and so
Sure.
just paying attention to all of that and
Yeah,
bringing all of that back in detail will give us a better opportunity to make a more, informed decision about what's coming.
okay. Thank you.
When you're dealing with North Knox, it's definitely a good idea to talk to the neighborhood and,
Sure, okay.
okay.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Before I make a motion, I have a question. If we were to consider a postponement, would you consider revising the design? Or would we
Yeah.
be in a circular, like we've been on a lot of cases lately where we postpone and then we just keep seeing the same thing come back? Would you be
And-
open to considering other options?
Yes, I would. I guess my struggle is like there is, as spoken, like there is new zoning with middle housing. And so trying to stay within middle housing, trying to do exactly the guidelines and things that it was spoken to and why it was voted on, and trying to add more units without more scale is,
It's a tricky nut to
It's-
crack.
it's
I really
kinda- it's
understand
quite
that.
the-
I think everybody here understands.
yeah, it's kind of,
difficult.
yeah, it's like, so don't go higher, don't go wider, but add. And seems a pretty tough thing to do. And so I guess that's where, and then when I do propose like a hip roof, that would be just similar to some other ones I can point out on Granger. Even that is kind of met with opposition of that wouldn't be enough, but yet the angle of the roof as it is right now also isn't like. So I will say it's a little tough and probably why up front in terms of getting input into it, not from you all, and I'm not opposed to a workshop at all, but when so many people start speaking into the design of it, it seems like it then doesn't really move forward. So I'm happy to do a workshop. I want to build something that is great for the block, great for the neighborhood, and also trying to accomplish what was voted on and passed with middle housing. And so, I'm fine with a lot of different, answering a lot of design choices, switching the roof style. I can speak to anything about the foundation, the doors that we've had passed or approved in the past, siding materials, window materials, anything like that.
I'd like to make two clarifications. First off, if design workshops are something that happen outside of the formal application process.
Okay.
So typically, we don't require this, but it would be recommended that you do this before submitting a formal application. You've done several with both the
Sure.
DRB and the HCC.
Sure.
And so we would recommend that before. So at this point in the process, to do a workshop, it would require the application being withdrawn or denied, and then the applicant doing a workshop and then resubmitting an application. So that's one thing. The other thing is that in the middle housing standards, there are separate forms that allow for 3 units. This is a townhouse form, and there's also the opportunity for a triplex. So you could get 3 units in a different configuration that has a different width of the building envelope. It may require a more creative solution to accommodate 3 units than a townhouse. So just to speak to the standards and then the process on that.
Thank you.
About a motion?
Well, she asked him a question. Did you answer the question? She asked you a question.
Lindsay?
No, she.
Oh,
Yeah, I did. I asked if you would be open to changing the design if we were to.
oh, yes, yeah. Yes, I mean, I don't want to get into like some, just resubmitting and making everyone, and I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So I am happy to change things that could hopefully get this project passed.
So in order to be able to clarify, Lindsay, in order to be able to do a workshop, to be able to give feedback and guidance, we would need to deny.
Yes, I mean, we already are giving feedback and guidance right now in the application process, but
Right.
yeah, we can't go.
Right.
We can't go back and hypothetically workshop something that has a formal application on the agenda.
Correct.
So we have 2 options here. Either withdraw it so he can do a workshop, but if he doesn't want to do a workshop and just want to take in comments and try to redo it, then we can just postpone it and let him come back. So do we want him to make that decision before we make the proposal?
And so with the workshops, what is that? I'm not sure in terms of like the meeting schedule and stuff for that. What is that?
They're at the end of each meeting, but you can't have an open application
Okay.
on the table when we're just kind of doing a theoretical feedback
Sure.
workshop. So
Okay.
you would have to withdraw it, or we'd have to deny it.
Okay.
Christina, is that?
Yes, and the feedback. If you all do proceed with a denial, I would just recommend to you all for absolute clarity that you do a denial without prejudice so that he can come back within the year timeframe.
And we're not requiring him, we're asking him what would he prefer.
We're
right?
offering.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you.
Yes, so
I have
we're-
a question for Lindsay. Is the fee structure, is the application fee different if we deny it? He would have to reapply? And
Yes.
with the application fee, if he withdraws it,
No, you would still, a new application requires a new fee.
whether it's denied or withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay.
But to expedite this, essentially, you've just had a workshop. You've heard everything that we've had to say, the neighbors have to say, and the neighborhood reps. So I don't know that you're going to get any more information than
Okay.
what you've already got
Okay.
or received.
But you're welcome to meet with the neighborhood if we postpone and work with them on, and workshop designs with them. We have regular neighborhood meetings you're welcome to attend. But I don't think this one is going to be just kind of, polished by a committee. I think, personally, I think this needs to be thoroughly rethought in order to meet the guidelines. It's possible I'm wrong, but I think that's what I think is the future of this project.
So Commissioner Hearns, when we postpone, does it have to be for 30 days or could it be for 60 days? I can't remember.
You can clarify.
Okay.
We can also postpone and he can withdraw the application and workshop if he wants.
If you choose
So
to. Okay.
yeah.
Then I make a motion to postpone for 60 days.
That sounds great.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Thank you. We've got a motion that's been properly seconded. Any further discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Epperly. We appreciate your collaboration.
Thank you.
All right. Now we are going into the evaluation of eligibility for National Register of Historic Places. It's the George F. Barber Cottage. It's in the Emery Place Historic District.
Melinda's going to introduce these. Yes.
The Certified Local Government Program is a preservation partnership among the federal, state, and local governments to help promote historic preservation at the grassroots level. The city of Knoxville was designated as a certified local government in 1985. As a certified local government, we are responsible, along with the Tennessee Historical Commission, to review the eligibility of National Register nominations before they are sent to the federal government for final approval. This month, we are reviewing 2 nominations. The first nomination is for the George F. Barber Cottage at 1701 East Glenwood Avenue, which is a Dutch colonial revival residence with craftsman details and a Greek front porch in the Doric order that was constructed in 1912. You can see the house pictured here in 1913, immediately after its construction. There are currently at least 115 houses designed by Barber on the National Register, either listed as individual landmarks or in historic districts. But I believe this is the first nomination that provides a full history of Barber's life and work. As I'm sure many of you know, George Barber was one of, if not the most, prolific American pattern book architects during the turn of the century, producing over 15,000 sets of plans, and he based his practice and life here in Knoxville. Barber specialized in the elaborate, highly ornamented Queen Anne style, and through deals with the Edgewood Land and Improvement Company, Park Ridge became a model neighborhood of built examples of his designs, which were heavily featured in his catalogs. Barber constructed 4 homes for his family in Knoxville, largely for the purpose of creating advertising exemplars, and you can see them pictured here in his pattern books. The first of these, 1635 Washington Avenue, was, quote, renovated unsympathetically and cheaply in the mid-century before later being restored in its modified state. Their second house burned down soon after its construction, and the third, at 1715 Washington Avenue, pictured below, was neglected until it was demolished for a parking lot. The fourth house, the cottage being nominated, is a clear departure from Barber's typical architectural style and is a more modest structure that was built as a final home for him and his wife, who both passed away in 1915. In the years since its construction, the house has only seen minor modifications and has been protected from significant damage due to neglect, making it the Barber family's only residence to evade the destruction of time and taste. The house is currently being renovated to fully restore it to its original state. Despite its seemingly out-of-character design, the cottage, quote, illustrates George Barber's skill in mixing stylistic elements from different architectural styles while still arriving at a pleasing composition, and demonstrates his ability to adapt to new trends and personal circumstances. Thus, in the opinion of staff, the George F. Barber Cottage is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places under Criterion C for its distinctive architecture and local significance.
Thank you. Just to give some context, Lindsay, what is our responsibility in this process?
So you guys will basically have you will vote according to the staff recommendation, or you could differ from it if you disagreed, but you would just make a motion to approve per staff recommendation, and the approval there would be recommending that this property is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places.
And then where does it go from us?
It goes to the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service.
Okay. Who currently owns this property?
A resident of Park Ridge owns the property. Aaron Streeter prepared, it's a private individual that owns this. Yeah, it's Greta Schmoyer.
Okay.
And Aaron Streeter prepared this nomination.
Excellent. Good. Thanks, Melinda.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need any discussion? I think everything's...
I just want to say it's a excellently written nomination from someone who sees nominations all day, every day. I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Think any better than that. I'll make a motion to approve or accept. Yeah. All right.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Okay. Are you going to handle this part or am I?
We got one more
Oh, one more what?
nomination.
Oh, okay. Bar Marley is National Historic Register District? Cool.
The second nomination we are reviewing today is a boundary increase of the Emery Place Historic District to include the Sanitary Laundry's boiler house at 750 Stone Street, a painted concrete block building which was constructed in 1926. You can see the boundary increase here on the left, outlined in blue with a little star. The sanitary laundry business was built along the streetcar line in the Emery Place Historic District, and its construction and machinery were considered innovative for the time. The boiler house served the central role of providing heat and steam to the main building. Throughout the years, the building has retained its overall integrity, such as its physical connection to the main sanitary laundry and its character-defining features. In 2023, the sanitary laundry building was included as a contributing structure in the expanded Emery Place Historic District, and both it and the boiler house will soon be rehabilitated for adaptive reuse as offices. In the opinion of staff, the boiler house and its associated boundary increase are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places under Criterion A for Commerce as it contributes to the broad patterns of history.
Thank you, Melinda.
I think I can't vote on this.
What?
This is going to be where I work. This is owned by McCarty, House Apple McCarty.
It's just a nomination.
Yeah, that's fine then. Just making sure, just wanting.
Jennifer, I'm not sure that that's really a conflict. I think that's great that you disclosed it though,
Yes,
just for the
yes.
record. But yeah, I think you're okay to vote on this.
Yes. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve.
I agree. I think it is eligible for the boundary increase.
Is that a second?
Yes.
Say, I second.
I second. I said I second at the beginning. Sorry. I second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay. All right, now we're down to the business end of things internally. First, we have to say goodbye to Stanton Webster. I've been here a long time, but you were here when I got here. How long have you served now, Stanton?
9.5 years.
Nice. Thank you for your service. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for your service, Stanton. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys for serving too.
All right. Lindsay, I think you're going to take it from here.
Sure. So often we do nominations a month ahead of the election, but that's primarily due to staff error. So because Dallas was really on top of it this month, we get to do the elections in the month we normally are supposed to. And so I'm going to start out. I will accept nominations for the chair position for 2025 for the City Historic Zoning Commission. So I'll open the floor for nominations for chair.
I'd like to nominate Daytwania Carter Mitchell as chairperson.
All right. We've had a nomination for Daytwania Carter Mitchell for chair of the HCC. Do I hear any other nominations?
Any volunteers?
All right. Okay. Hearing no other nominations, I will now open the floor for a motion for Daytwania Carter Mitchell to be the chair of the City HCC.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
I have some
Oh, do you
questions.
have some comments?
Yes. So I've served as chair before. There are at least 4 people here who have not served. Are any of you guys interested in serving? No? Okay. Okay. I mean, I'll be willing to do it if no one else is willing to do it. That's all.
Okay. All right. So now we're at all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we will open the floor for nominations for vice chair of the City HCC for 2025.
I would like to nominate Travis Tillman.
All right.
I'll second.
Can I serve consecutively?
Yes.
As
Yes.
vice chair? Okay. Well, for anybody who's interested, perk of the job, you get the nice printed out sheet here. It's really nice.
Do I hear any other nominations? Okay, opening the floor for a motion for Travis Tillman as the vice chair for 2025.
So moved.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, vice chair.
This
thank you, Rick, for your 2 years in the chair seat.
It's been fun.
I cannot believe it's been 2 years. Unbelievable. I cannot believe it's been 9.5 years. No.
Wild that you didn't want to do 14 and a half.
I appreciate the offer. Really.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Everyone have a great time with the holidays. See you next year.
And there are plenty of goodies over here.
Yes. Good.
Last time to get Stan's sausage ball.
Yeah.